Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. Today is May the 6th, 2026. We're still in Mental Health Awareness Month, and I've taken time to discuss how America does have the highest incarceration rate in the world, the most incarcerated people in the world. America is only 5% of the world's population, but 20% of the world's incarcerated, imprisoned people are in America. They're living in America. So over 2 million people are in are under America's carceral system. It's worse when you actually include those who are on probation, who have to report to a probation officer and things like that. So a combination of its jails, its state prisons, and federal prisons. Um, I have nothing to do with America's prison system. I would have nothing to do with their jails either, had it not been that I was detained through pretrial detention for false charges that were filed against me by Maryland's Montgomery County's Crooked State Attorney's Office. The first person who filed the false charges were a woman called Thea F. Zumwalt, right? Incidentally, she's actually a granddaughter of an erstwhile chief of naval operations, Elmo Zumwalt of the Navy. As of the day I was swatted in my home, I was working as an auditor in the Department of the Navy. I'd reported fraud, and these were under investigation and other misconduct. So they were under, in, there were ongoing investigations. I have reason to suspect there's evidence that indicates that the swatting that occurred was actually was a false flag operation instigated by rogue agents of the Navy. They used Montgomery County Police. The person who filed the false charge against me, um, Demarcus Coleman, is affiliated with the Navy and the Marines. And there was another guy who showed up on May 14, 2023, a Hengxin Chen. He's a military reserve. So it's kind of interesting. But today, what I want to do is I want to shed some light on uh, one of the perjuries that Montgomery County Police Officer Sergeant Charles Drengwitz suborned. Subordination of perjury is when a police officer or law enforcement officer induces um, someone, right? Induces someone to commit perjury on a court document. So in this case, it was a peace order by a guy called Girma Shumi. I'd never spoken with Girma Shumi before. He lived in 506. I lived in apartment 503. I'd lived in that building for 2 years. Never had an issue, no complaints, nothing. No police had ever been to my home for making noise or being disruptive. Never. On October 22, except on October 22, when I was swatted, the first time I was swatted, when um, a, a lascivious property manager who had been sexually harassing me called, and I had rebuffed her, called the police, right? I was in the office, right? Because they came to post a false failure to pay notice on my door after I'd rebuffed her sexual advances, unwanted sexual advances earlier on in the day. She'd made lascivious gestures that I'd ignored. There's a camera that shows it, right? I'd ignored her, and then she comes to post a false failure to pay notice on my door, right? So I go into their office and I get locked out. And then she's rude to me. She makes me sit down for over 20, 30 minutes. She's attending to other people and she's just making me sit down. All I was asking for was key to reaccess my apartment because when I came out to look at the see what was posted on my door, I was reading it outside. The door locked, it was jammed. It locked me out. So I went into the office to ask them to come and open the door for me. They made me wait for 30 minutes, asking me to sit down. And then when I asked to leave, that she started yelling at me, started shouting, saying, "Oh, you're not better than me," because I didn't talk to her. You could see she was psychologically impaired. She had a mental disturbance. She just comes. It was an assault. She came. I immediately brought out my phone, started recording her. She came out saying, "Hey," yelling that I'm not better than her. I'm not better than her. She was saying her husband's a state attorney. This baby. She meant John McCarthy, but she was a black woman. She was taller than me. She was bigger than me. She was over 6 feet tall, huge, maybe about 300 pounds or something. She was huge. She was yelling at me. I recorded the whole thing. She was saying, "Oh, I'm not better than her. I'm not better than her. Her husband's a state attorney." I didn't care. I wasn't talking to her. I don't know why she was saying all of that. And then she goes, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." So, I recorded everything. And then she goes, "Call the police." So I said, "Hey, stop threatening me." That was what I said. "Hey, you need to stop threatening me." She said, "Oh," and she goes, "Call 911." I recorded everything. So that's how police showed up. And then police saw the whole thing. I'd gone to report her to the corporate. Unfortunately, their corporate office was in Pennsylvania, right? It's a national building company or whatever. So um, the police officer who showed up, his name's Officer Bright, is a black guy, right? He now asked me that, okay, I should come and file a complaint against her to press charges because one, she used the door to hit me. That was assault. He saw it. It's recorded. Then then she made a false 911 call. So he asked me to come press charges against her. I didn't want to. I declined to do so, right? To press charges against her because he said next time they do it again, they'll just show up and arrest her. But I didn't think it was a good idea to get a protective order against the building property manager in my building. They're trying to get me out. So that was a mistake I made. And I didn't want to get a black woman locked up, right? That was a mistake I made because the police officer said, hey, he's going to lock her up anytime I call and, and they show up, right? So I didn't, out of acting kind, my kind heart by saying, well, I don't want to get a black woman locked up. This is something minor. I don't want to get her locked up. It seems that they conspired because what I did was I went to go and file a complaint with the attorney general against the building. Say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to file a lawsuit against you guys because one, that was harassment. This is, and they keep filing these failure to pay notices on my door since then, harassing me, right? Because it's a public notice. I've paid. I showed, I'm not owing any money. Why are you filing failure to pay notices on my door? She threatened to have me evicted. That was one of the things she said. She said she's going to get me evicted, right? Get me evicted for what? I pay my money. I'm not owing any money. You can't get me evicted. So you see the criminal ways that Americans use, right? They're working in these places and they abuse their power. This morning, we got news of DC police, 13 officers on suspension because they had been falsifying crime data reports, right? They were manipulating crime data reports. This is something President Trump had said over a year ago in August 2025, last year, almost a year now. He had been saying on Truth Social that DC was faking crime data, right, to make it appear that there was less crime, that there was safe, more safety in DC. And he said this was false. And today it's in the news, all over the news, that DC was actually manipulating crime data. Some officers, 13 of them, were suspended. So you see people in the police force fabricating things. That's not the only thing that goes on. They also falsify reports, right? Because I was the victim of a crime. The police should have had it on record that I was the victim of a crime and be looking out, right? So I filed a complaint with Maryland Attorney General. Maryland Attorney General started sending them notices that they will prosecute them unless they get into a mediation with me. They ignored them. May 17, 2023, they still sent them a letter. April, they sent them a letter. Maryland Attorney General started an investigation, extensive, because I reported to different places. They started to investigate them. And lo and behold, I'm swatted. GDAY, in his emergency evaluation petition, claimed the police officer said that I had been harassing my neighbors, attacking my neighbors. All a lie. The neighbors he was referring to was this guy, Girma Shumi, this one Girma Shumi. Girma Shumi is the guy GDAY came to attempt to assault me. He used to assault me on May 14, 2023. And another young man. And then they dropped the phone in the corridor and fled. Fortunately, I had witnesses. They didn't bank on that because I was on the phone with my friend. My friend spoke with the police. My friend asked me, call the police. When the police showed up, I called her again. She spoke with the police for almost 10 minutes and she wrote a statement, spoke with the state attorney. But the police falsified their report. They wrote a fabricated report. Sergeant Charles Drengwitz, he retired after that. That's what they do, right? Once they start investigating them, because I went to file a complaint with Maryland government, they sent it. They asked me to go to Public Police Accountability Board. I went to the FBI. FBI refers it for internal affairs investigation, everything. So the guy retires. Even the chief of police, a black guy, Marcus Jones, retired, right? So this is the misconduct that's pervasive in the police force, right? In the DMV area, DC Police, Montgomery County Police. It's made up of criminals, right? Who fabricate reports, fabricate evidence, brings up false witnesses, plant evidence, and writes false incident reports against law-abiding American citizens like me. And the state attorney goes along with them and files malicious prosecution, malicious charges in order to protect misconduct of the police. That's what the charge against me is all about. The police has filed a false, the state attorney has filed false charges against me that it can't prove, no probable cause, right? There was no arrest warrant. I didn't commit a crime. So in any event, today I'm going to just read the fabricated peace order, the suborned peace order by Sergeant Charles Drengwitz and Hengxin Chen, right? They induced this guy who filed this report on May 17th. So the guy who actually assaulted me filed this false report on May 17th. When I was released from jail, right, after I'd been treated for my injuries because I was shot in the head, they stitched me, my blood pressure had gone up, everything. My kidneys, the tasing, they said it almost damaged my kidneys. Thank God, I'm a Christian. So I was treated all of that for my wounds, right? Not psychiatric treatment. I refused that. Of course, that didn't happen, right? Because I did go through a scan to make sure nothing, my brain, the skull, there was no fracture in my skull because I was shot in the head. So after that, after I was released from jail, so I was arrested at the hospital. I spent almost 3 months, right? They locked me up. My family didn't know where I was. So I was arrested under color of law, right? Kidnapping under color of law. So when I came out, I immediately went to the state attorney. I called the state attorney. I went to court because Girma Shumi obtained a perjured peace order against me, ex parte. GDAY's emergence petition as well was ex parte. That means it was one-sided. It was just one party that went before a judge. The other party was not there to defend themselves. It's a form of judicial misconduct. It's a constitutional right violation, right? Sixth Amendment, anybody who files an accusation against me, I'm entitled to notice, to a hearing. I'm entitled to an impartial judge, right? I'm entitled to be able to defend myself against accusations. None of that happened, right? So this is the peace order filed by Girma Shumi. When I came out, I reported to the state attorney. I reported to a judge. The judge, Girma Shumi appeared in court. He couldn't speak a word of English. He asked for a translator, right? Um, the judge told me go, and the judge was impressive, right? He asked me, I was an Asian American, took time. He said, okay, look, the peace order expires in a few days because I was locked up and they'll lock you up until the peace order, these documents expired and you can't respond. That was what the state attorney and the judges were doing. So that's how you knew that it was some kind of conspiracy to violate my civil rights because, why is it that there's a charge against me and I can't appear in court? I had a cellmate who had a peace order against him, right? They take him to the jail, right? The jail takes him to so he can appear for the peace order. But Girma Shumi filed this in Montgomery County in Silver Spring, right? The case against me was in Rockville. That's where GDA where I going to file the original peace order. I was, and then they fabricate a charges against you, the same place in Rockville. But the state held me, detained me, preventing me from going to go and actually to appear in court and defend myself against this fabricated peace order. It was a perjury fabrication from the demented mind of Girma Shumi, right? Um, so I'm going to read, I'm going to just read directly off the peace order. and one, and just bear with me, please. So, um, so this is what actually happened, right? Because my friend, and I called the police. When I was assaulted by Jidewari and Girma Shumi and another young man, and I screamed that this is illegal. You can't do this. One of them, the young guy, dropped the phone in the corridor. They had a timer on it. They fled. My neighbor came out, who'd been watching through her people. Apparently, she came out, and I called I had my friend on the phone. I was telling her what just happened. I was shaken. I was like distraught, shocked that, man, nothing like that had ever happened before. People just grabbing me, wanting to abduct me, a grown man. GD where he was saying he wanted to take me to go and see a psychiatrist, right? I screamed. I said no. So I told my friend what happened. I told my neighbor was there. She picked up the phone. My neighbor, a female, she picked up the phone in the corridor. I never touched it. My friend said, call the police. I told them the whole thing. My friend said, call the police. That's assault. This is a statement my friend made to the police and the state attorney. On May 14, 2023, at around 11:15 a.m., a call came into my home. Olu said that his Ethiopian neighbor had assaulted him in some way. Over a mobile phone dispute, I told him to call the police. Olu called me again when the officer arrived. The policeman asked me who I was. I explained that I've known Olu Osha since 2004. I attended his wedding as well as his graduation from law school. I then asked the officer what was going on. He disclosed that he had been called about a disturbance on the floor of the unit in which Olu lived. I then asked the officer if he needed anything else from me. He said that he did not. The call ended. The entire exchange lasted fewer than 10 minutes, and then she signs, right? So that's what happens, right? That reported that I had been assaulted. My friend didn't say anything about didn't say anything about me hallucinating or attacking people or feeling anything, but I was the victim of an assault. I recorded them on my phone as he grabbed me because my phone was in my hand. I recorded them on my phone, and as they were running, that phone has since been stolen. Was stolen by the police because I was sorted on May 16th. So you can imagine after that, Jide Wari gets the emergency evaluation petition and refers to this instance, mischaracterizes it. So something that these psychiatrists who did the evaluation, what they found not plausible, what they found to be suspicious was that, wait, an emergency evaluation petition is supposed to be used for an imminent public safety threat. It's right now. He said they got obtained this petition on May 14. Why did they wait for 2 days to execute it? 2 days. There was no emergency. So he knew they fabricated it. That's the stated psychiatrist, right? They were smart. This particular guy was a smart guy. They couldn't pull wool over his eye. So it was like, why did they wait for 2 days? Right? That's why, he believed me, my statement, what I told him. So, and he told the judge that I provided exculpatory evidence, meaning I didn't commit any crime. That's what he wrote it down. So the judge knew what was really going on. So while I was in the hospital, while I was detained on May 18, right, a sheriff's deputy came into the hospital and gave me Girma Shumi's peace order. I couldn't read it until later because I didn't have my glasses. So this is what he wrote. Girma Shumi filed this. It was filed May 17 after the assault. So you see, he did it retroactively, right? Because they were now trying to figure out how they could cover their tracks. He goes to file in court May 17, the day after the police came to my home. So let me read what he wrote. So May 17, Girma Shumi goes to file in court, petition, and you can see notice to petitioner. Any individual who knowingly provides false information in a petition for peace order is guilty of a misdemeanor and on conviction subject to a fine not exceeding $1,000 or imprisonment not exceeding 90 days or both, right? So so he goes to file District Court of Maryland, Montgomery County, Silver Spring, Girma Shumi, address 2301 Glen Allen Avenue, apartment 506, against Oluro Timiosha, 2301 Avenue, Glen Allen Avenue, apartment 503. Now, how did he know my name? I didn't know his name. The only way I got to know this guy's name, this lunatic's name, was from this peace order that I was giving. That's how I knew, okay, his name was Girma Shumi. I lived there for 2 years. I'd never spoken to him. He's a drunk. He's an alcoholic. His eyes are bloodshot, red eyes. He drinks, he throws up in the corridor. He lives alcohol bottles, right? He's an alcoholic, he's a drug addict. Him and his son, all eyes always red, smelling of weed, right? Huge smell. These are the people that the police used. So he files this petition for peace order. The petition myself, against me, him. Then he writes this, he says for violence, right? Threats, he said, no, threats of violence, harassment, malicious destruction of property. Which property? Okay, right. He lied that I stole his phone. This is a statement. He says physical, and then for trespass. How can I trespass? It's my apartment, but look at what he wrote: physical attack. The details of what happened. He wrote impersonation of law enforcement agent, right? Somebody who can't speak a word of English, doesn't can't hear word English. At least that's what he made out in court, because I went and asked for a motion for them to reopen the case. The judge asked me to go and report him to the police for them to arrest him, or I called the police. Robert Sheehan, I was on the house arrest then. The guy asked me that I should go to the state attorney's office. I went to the state attorney. The state attorney filed charges against him and Jide Wariri. But the state attorney, the head of the state attorney, the district, the state attorney, I guess, what's his name, John McCarthy. He kept suppressing it. So the person who filed charges, she said she was going to do a nollie, right, hold it off, and file charges later on. She didn't want the judge to dismiss it. That's what she said. She said, "I believe you. What happened?" But she said the judges might dismiss this. That she doesn't want the judge to dismiss it. And she said she was traveling. So something fishy going on, right? But the state attorney's office had what really happened, right? So, and it's interesting that in the false charges against me that's going on, the state attorney has refused to provide this guy and Jide Wari as witnesses. Just the police who shot me and tased me, or who lied that I assaulted them. But that these people had actually assaulted me May 14 and falsified, they'd been suborned by Montgomery County Police to falsify uh, statements, a petition against me. Both of them ex parte orders. They got them from judges when I was not there, right? So, again, GDY is a Howard University professor, lived there for over 40 years. He volunteers for the Montgomery County Police, so they know him well. He said he's the chair of their prison ministry, right? That's what he claimed. And two of his kids are attorneys in Maryland, right? One of them also works for the federal government. So you can see how it was easy for him to have this influence or whatever. So this guy writes impersonation of law enforcement. I've no, I've law enforcement agent. I've not been charged with that. That's a serious crime. Not been charged with that, right? And told me I am under arrest. He said I grabbed him and told him he was under arrest. I pulled him into my apartment, told him I'm a cop, and pulled him into my apartment and told him he was under arrest, right? Grabbing my hand and snatching my phone and crushing on the floor, right? He wrote crushing on the floor. The same day he came to me to attack me again, saying why you call a police on me. third time, he come to my door, knocking the door to break in, all fabrications. Then it goes describe all other harm the respondent has caused to the persons for whom you are seeking protection and give dates if known. On May 14, 2023, so you see something happened on May 14, 2023. You see, this is different from what my friend who was a witness and was on the phone, who I was in my home, right? What she said happened. On May 14, 2023, he grabbed my hand and forced me. This is how he writes, right? That's not my language. This is his writing. And forced me to his room and snatched my phone. And I escape, not escape. He goes escape. I guess it means escape. And I escape and uh, and call a police. They recover my phone the same day. He say, "Why you call a police?" On May 16, 2023, he come to my door and try to break, right? So all of fabrication signed May 17, 2023. So this is the Jekyll and Hyde stuff, right? That Jide wrote, but this was already May 17, 2023. May 16, you can see police had already destroyed my apartment. There was no gun. I've never had a gun, right? So in the hospital, they were claiming that I said I had guns, I had bombs. That was what I said. I said, hey, this is all a complete lie. So different tales. On June 1, 2023, when they were asking, the police was asking that they detain me, not release me, because I was arrested upon discharge from the hospital. The police officer who came to get me, a Sergeant John King, racist-looking thug who lied, right? He committed perjury. He claimed that they came to deliver an emergency petition from Jide that I threatened to shoot him. All a fabrication. They have no proof of this, no evidence, all a lie, right? And then they said they came peacefully, and as they knocked on my door, that I came out with a baseball bat, right? The charge statement says I had a stick. All a lie. The body cam doesn't show any of this. So when they're saying this thing, they're gaslighting. I'm thinking, what are these guys talking about? They're projecting, the caricature of the criminal, of the thug, of the gangster who comes out, the Al Capone figure comes out with a baseball bat. Of course, they have to say baseball. I've never held a baseball bat in my life. I don't own one. They said I came out with a baseball bat swinging and wanted to stab them. That's why they tased me. So cops lie. Cops lie a lot in America. So they got this guy to fabricate something, right? So they fabricated it. This guy also had. He not only did that, but somehow he had my date of birth. Now, my date of birth was not in any public records because I work in the federal government, right? It was PIF. That's personally identifiable information. It's protected, right? But since this false charge, since this false peace order, they've been placing my date of birth was not public, right? How did he have my name? How did he have my date of birth? Because my wallet was stolen with cash, my debit card. Somebody then withdrew cash from my bank account during the time I was in prison. Not in prison, sorry, when I was in the hospital and when I was detained in jail. Right? Jail is different from prison. Well, you're wrongfully detained. They withdrew $350 from my bank account. Right? Apart from the cash they stole in my home. So they had my debit card. Maybe this Girma Shumi. He had my date of birth. So he had access to my, because my US passport ID was there, my certificate of naturalization. He probably stole it. He might be amongst the rackets, because there are people who steal government IDs. They use it to get social security benefits. My social security card was stolen. They also use it to make false passports, fake passports, right? I reported this to the FBI already. And they're working with Montgomery County Police, cops like Sergeant Charles Drengwitz. They're probably part of a racket, a ring, in which they make false identity for illegal aliens, right? False documents. So he had my date of birth. How did he have my date of birth? Jide didn't have my date of birth because he didn't put it on the perjured emergency evaluation petition. So he had this. He wrote of fake heights. So you can see there they've probably concocted whatever height. That's not mine. Fake weight 185. My height, my at that time I was roughly 240 pounds. I was trying to lose weight because it was, I'd gained bulked up for winter, summer. I was now trying to shred. I was trying to shred, right? Fake. He wrote that I'm 185 or 81 pounds. I can't see his writing properly, right? 5 feet 7, all fabricated. That's not my, none of that. They were probably trying to do something. I know it was all staged, orchestrated by rogue agents of the Department of Navy and the Pentagon, right? So they were doing something with these guys. Excuse me. I've read, and this is something GDY refers to in his fabricated emergence petition. This guy had not filed a peace order until May 17, when after the execution, right? But this guy writes a false police report, referring to this, that referred to 2300-23099, Sergeant Drengwitz, right, in GDY's perjured emergency petition, right? So he mischaracterizes what happened on May 14. And meanwhile, in this false charge against me, the state has been trying to suppress, GDY's attorney was trying to suppress events of May 14, 2023, to remove it and all that, because it shows there's fraud upon the courts, right? I was a victim of a crime. I have witnesses. It shows the fraud upon the court, that this is a malicious, bad faith prosecution. In any event, my name is Olurotimi Oisha, and I will keep you posted. Thank you.